Now then, people, it's Joe, it's all Leeds TV, and we're back again for another opposition preview. This time, well, you'll have seen him before. He's been on the channel before, Mr. Farrell Monk of Fulhamish. How are you, Farrell?
Very well, thanks. How are you, Joe?
Yeah, good, mate, good. I'm still on a high, as we've just been saying off air, with Premier League football, and disappointed last night when we got beat by Hull in the Carabao Cup, but we have that luxury now where we can just say, oh, it's just a Mickey Mouse Cup, we're not bothered anyway, you know. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about Fulham and what you expect ahead of the game on Saturday. Quite a big game, I think, in the context of the season. If either team were to lose, especially after losing on the opening day, it's got that added bit of spice to it. We'll start with your opening day performance against Arsenal. I mean, both yourself and West Brom didn't look great on the opening day. We, on the other hand, you know, played well against the strong Liverpool side, but ultimately we didn't win the game. We still got 0 points, so it doesn't count for anything really. You know, this is a big game. This is where we now need to get after maximum points. But what are your thoughts after that game, Farrell? Confident, or like what are your thoughts?
It wasn't as good as we thought it could be. I think going into the game, we were eagerly anticipating what the starting lineup would be, and that would kind of set the tone for it. And as it were, there were 0 new signings in that starting 11. So we kind of knew what we were going to expect from the Fulham team. And to be honest, it was as we expected, in terms of the fact that, you know, regardless of how the gap in between the Championship and the Premier League might be, there's still a massive gap. And it's not just that, we're actually playing, as it were, the form team in the league. You know, that they had gone and won the FA Cup, you know, fairly recently. They had won the Community Shield against Liverpool as well. So, you know, it was a Championship team going up against a very, very good Premier League team, one that a lot of people do expect to tickle the top 4 for them, hopefully. So, you know, and up against, you know, players like Aubameyang, and they've brought in some wonderful players. Like, I'm a big fan of Willian, and he played very well on Saturday. And you know, they've decided to do away with their much maligned defence and bring in Gabriel, who was quality on Saturday. And maybe fortunately for them that David Luiz was injured. But enough about Arsenal. We're not here for that. But you know, it was kind of a performance that we somewhat expected. As I said, you know, we were quite nice and pretty on the ball. We worked Arsenal in the middle areas of the pitch and from the back. But ultimately, the opening goal basically came from a mistake from Tim Ream, unfortunately, who up until lockdown, I would have said I can't really remember a mistake he's ever done. And then after lockdown, he seems to got a mistake in him every single game. Unfortunately, you know, he's 33 now. He's still a classy footballer, and he's a very good defender. But unfortunately, he does have the odd mistake in him, and it punished us. But overall, it wasn't that bad a performance. I just think Arsenal they just punished us, and it easily could have been 4 or 5-0. And I think anyone who keeps goals away from this Arsenal team this year are going to be doing well. Obviously, as well, Fulham were lacking Mitrovic, and he's always going to be a big miss from this Fulham team.
Yeah, definitely. Just on Arsenal, I agree with you, mate. I'm one of them that's tipped them to, you know, for the top 4, and they do look a decent outfit under Mikel Arteta. And of course, when you've got, you know, players like Aubameyang leading the line, it's obviously going to make the difference. And I agree with you. I've mentioned it many times about Willian as well. I think it's a really astute signing, regardless of his age. He's a top level operator, and so experienced as well at winning things, you know, and doing things the right way. And he had a great debut, like you say. But yeah, you touched on him there. Obviously, I was quite glowing towards Michael Hector in the lead up to the Fulham Arsenal game, and picked him as one. And of course, Harrison Reed. I think Harrison Reed's a special talent as well, to be fair. But, you know, it didn't really work out for the centre-back partnerships, Ream and Hector, on Saturday. I know Ream's a long servant of the club, but do you see that as an area that you need to get new players in? I know you've done some business, and we'll touch on it, but it's not like when you came up with Jukanovic, I think on the opening day you had like 7 new signings as opposed to this time. It's changed a little bit, and you're going with a tried and tested. But do you see that as an area that needs improvement, the centre back?
Yeah, absolutely. Straight from the final whistle at Wembley 6 weeks ago, it was the one area that we were looking to strengthen, and Scott Parker and the management have made that absolutely no secret. That's where they're going to go for. I think if we were to prioritise 2 places, it would be in the entire team. It was centre back and right back. We brought in 1 right back in Kenny Tete, international experience. He made his debut last night, was very, very astute, got the assist for Mitrovic's goal. Aina, who can play right back, but we expect him to play either left back or left wing. He's a local lad from London, came through the Chelsea ranks, went away and now has come back. But centre back is one place that we haven't really seen as a worry. We haven't seen any sort of links, anyone that we've been able to be linked with. I think, thankfully we do have Hector and Ream, who have vast experience, who can play well and know the system, and so it's not like we've left last season with a bad defence and we've got rid of them and we've got no one to replace them. They were one of the, especially after lockdown, one of the best defences in the league, arguably. But it is certainly an area that we have been trying to sort of get players in. It's just a worry that with the transfer window, the door coming from the wide open to slightly ajar now, it's starting to become a little bit of a worry, and I do worry that the goals we might concede at the weekend. I mean, if you go back to the Arsenal game, the one place in the preview that we highlighted that we didn't want to see was our defenders, particularly our fullbacks and centre backs, being caught one-on-one, which is what happened for the second 2 goals for Arsenal. And it's not just a case of, okay, we can get away with 1 or 2. In the Premier League, you just can't have that happening at all, because they will just punish. And that's exactly what happened. So I think tactically, that's where we were probably exposed as well. And I think it might be slightly harsh to judge individual performances at this stage. But, saying that, because you've got, especially in this Parker team, and as you've seen it, that this Parker team, they defend well as a massive unit and as a team. And if there's 1 or 2 small errors in that, then it's going to fail. And that's exactly what happened at the weekend. And so I think it would be slightly unfair to blame any individual, say Hector or Ream. I think Hector will end up being the long-term centre back in this season, alongside who it might be remains to be seen.
Yeah, you make a fantastic point. I mean, against Liverpool, we conceded from 4 set pieces. Do you know what I mean? You can't literally, if that's in the Championship, we might get away with it. But against top opposition, you can't afford to give them opportunities, really, can you? You know what I mean? Like you said, a few mistakes and they're deadly,
Especially with Virgil van Dijk lurking in there, because he punishes. He's just on every single ball as much as he can, really.
The business that you've done then, I know you've said, I was going to ask if you've actually been linked with any centre-backs, but you've told me no. But what do you think to the business overall? Obviously, you've brought Areola in from PSG in goal. You mentioned Tete. I think the right back Lamina as well, which is an interesting one. Obviously, permanent signings of Knockaert and Reed as well. I was really impressed with Reed. I think in that fixture where we beat 3-0, it flattered us a little bit, if we're being totally honest, because you dominated in the first half. You really dominated, and we just caught you on the counter. And I think that's how we'll touch on it a little bit later on about the left full-back position and being able to get around Brian as good as he is going forward. He can be got at on that side, and I think that's an area we'll target again. Probably we'll have to see if Parker's worked something out for that. But what do you make on the business overall?
I think it's very smart. I think there are certainly a lot of lessons learned from a couple of years ago, and they've tried to be a bit more astute about what they wanted and target areas where we were weak, not just strengthening places that we already were fine at. Because I mean, there's obvious comparisons to what happened 2 years ago. Just to touch on it slightly, we probably had the best midfield 3 in the Championship going up in McDonald, Johansson and Kearney, and then lo and behold, we spent £55 million on Seri and Anguissa, and then we just spent ages trying to rotate them to fit them all in, and it just didn't work. This time round, we've obviously brought in Reed technically, but obviously he already fits into that system. Thankfully, we've got Anguissa back, who is a wonderful, wonderful footballer, and he started on last night even, and he was brilliant. I feel like it's unfair that Andre Frank, Zambo, and Gisa against some League One players. No disrespect to Ipswich, but it was a bit unfair at times. And alongside Lamina, and Lamina is quite a versatile player. I think what he brings is he's not just an energetic player, but he's a very good ball carrier, and he's able to sort of open up midfield and make that extra man. And I think he brings a little bit of quality, a little bit of extra, a little bit different from someone like Reed, a little bit different from Kearney, a little bit from Bobby Reed, a little bit different from Josh Onoma. So I think that they're very good signings in the middle of the park. They brought in Tete, who's just a step above what we got already. I think there's a lot of work that's going behind the scenes. I think after the weekend that, apart from the centre back position, which I've talked upon, it's going to be another winger really. At the moment, we've got Niskins Cabano, again a bit of a fan favourite. We love him, but probably not the quality that we need. And then we've got Cavallero again, the same. It's pretty much copy and paste. Yeah. Bobby Decordova Reed, pretty much the same. Definite top quality Championship player, but whether they'll work in the Premier League, I'm not entirely sure. So, it's not the end of the world if we're going to be left with those options, along with people like Anthony Knockhart, who much maligned, very frustrating player, but he fits into the Scott Parker mould. You don't concede, you have hassle and harry, and you work tactically. You can fit into this team. Just not very productive in terms of assists and goals. That's for sure. I think a lot of it comes down to, I think what Parker really wants is people who can hold on to the ball, people who can pass it, people who can defend well, people who can build, learn from Scott Parker's tactics. And then can we actually create good opportunities, not trying to take every advantage to get the ball into the box as quickly as possible. Pick and choose your moments to go in. And that's something that is quite probably very difficult to find. So good luck to them trying to find an extra winger, an extra centre-back to fit into the system.
Yeah, I mean, you make a good point. I mean, when you went up under Jukanovic, I thought you'd do well, and then, like you see, you just threw the book at it. And I think it was a bit like Villa as well last season, and it's mad how this comparison now, when you come up, is you're doing a Villa, you're doing a Fulham. If you start getting the cash book out, and if you're not, you're doing a Norwich. I think the way to go, and I think maybe Fulham are trying it this time, is keeping that core group a bit like Sheffield United, and just adding them little bits of quality. I think that's what we've tried to do. We've just adding a few additions.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that there is the whole throwing your money around at it does have some success, but I think that's starting to fail somewhat.
And with that performance against Liverpool, did you see any of it, and were you impressed?
I did watch all of it. How could you not, really?
Yeah.
I thought Leeds scored 3 very good goals, but as you quite rightly say, you've come away with 0 points. And I think if you look at the performances in between the two teams, I think that it would have been very fortunate for Leeds to actually pick up a point that day, because I thought Liverpool going forward were excellent. They probably should have got 2 or 3 more maybe, but Leeds took their chances, and that's dangerous. That's the dangerous thing. They've obviously worked on their patterns of play, because you could see from each of their 3 goals how they've come about. They've targeted those areas, and the only difference was probably Van Dijk's. I think it was Van Dijk's error for Bamford's goal, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Sorry if I've got that wrong.
No, that's fine.
But Bielsa's obviously targeted those things. As soon as they pick up the ball, they're trying to find the wide areas, trying to find the space. And fair play to them. They pushed quite high up for a lot of it, and I thought that they would eventually run out a bit of steam. It would be, if they decide to play that way throughout the rest of the season, I don't know whether Leeds might burn out, because it's not a huge squad with a lot of talent going through it. But you know, Bielsa's massively experienced.
Yeah.
He's trying to find. I don't know whether he'll change the way that they play in on Saturday. I've got a feeling that he might do. I've got a feeling that he'll probably still play the high press for quite large parts of the game, and then manage the game slightly by sitting back and waiting to exploit. Much in the same way that it was in the game we 2 or 3 months ago, as it was. Leeds got the early goal, and then just basically decided to wait and wait and wait for their opportunities, and it worked for them.
Yeah, definitely. I think you make a good point, and I think that's the tactics we will employ. I think Jack Harrison made a point after the game against Liverpool that Trent was targeted, and a lot of our our goals came from that side. Especially Jack Harrison's first, it was unreal. Calvin knew straight away where it was going as soon as he picked up the ball, and I think we'll do a similar sort of job in terms of down that side against Joe Bryan. It was an area we targeted in the game at Ellen Road. What do you make of that? Like, I know he's so good going forward, and of course Mitrovic is probably likely to start after playing midweek on the weekend, and there's no one better pinging in a ball than Joe Bryan. Really, let's be honest for Mitrovic. But what do you make of that? Is it frustrating as a Fulham fan watching it, knowing how good he is going forward, but just thinking, I wish he'd stay back a little bit at times, or?
I mean, maybe before the playoff final, I might have had a different opinion. But if he can,
fair play.
If he can pick in 2 goals like that, then I'm okay with it. Do it all day long, mate. It was. I like Joe Bryan. I think he's very energetic. Crossing of the ball, excellent. Definitely knows how to pick out one particular man himself. And there was one thing different last night from the game on Saturday, which was when the balls were getting in. Joe Bryan didn't play, but when the balls were coming in, there were 2 or 3 bodies in there, not just Mitrovic. And I think there was a difference there because there were other defenders occupied with other attackers. On Saturday, Joe Bryan, I can't remember him actually getting across him, but surprisingly, our probably best attacker that day was Dennis Adoy, of all people. And he got in 3 really excellent crosses into really dangerous areas, and no one was there. I mean, Mitrovic didn't play, and it might have been different if he was, but it probably shows that the Joe Bryan Mitrovic connection that could actually pay off dividends, hopefully on Saturday and for the rest of the season. We saw Robinson in a Fulham shirt last night for the first time. He looked very good. He's I would say a better dribbler, and he was very good at finding spaces in behind their fullbacks and wingers, which Joe Bryan isn't that sort of player when he plays fullback. He's very much a pick it up early, maybe play a 1-2, find some space for a cross. Whereas Robinson is different, so it might be tactically there might be some difference there. I'm again just going back to it. I'm okay with Joe Bryan. I think he's a good player. I think he fits into the system. And let's see how his game evolves. Now he's being pushed for that left back spot with Anthony Robinson, who is quite obviously a talented player, young at 22. That's what Parker has actually mentioned this in his press conference earlier, that he's looking for more players, not just in the centre back position to push who's already in the starting burst, but all over the pitch. And perhaps that Joe Bryan is one of those places where he targeted to get another person in to push him.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, I mean, Robinson was linked with AC Milan. I think he had an issue with his heart, wasn't it? I mean, it shows the talents there. Just on Mitrovic, then, I guess you fully expect him to play on Saturday. He's a real thorn. I mean, whenever the ball goes into the box, I mean, he seems to connect. He's just so good, like movement wise, and such a strong. It's like an ox. Do you know what I mean? But with Mitro, I just before we touch, on your thoughts, I wanted to get your thoughts from a Fulham perspective on the whole Ben White situation. A couple of minutes in, with the elbow. I know they had words at Craven Cottage as well. He grabbed him by the neck, so it was like, felt to me sometimes he can get, too pet up and think, right, I'm going to give him some back after what happened last time. I mean, what was your guys' thoughts? Obviously, you still went on to secure promotion, but it could have easily gone the other way, couldn't it?
Yeah, it could have been. I mean, as soon as that happened, we were all like, well, the referee's missed it. That's a 3-match ban straight away. Like, there's no shadow of a doubt. I mean, he might not have meant it to hurt Ben White? I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's so late, it's so reckless. You know, we see late challenges all the time, or high foots where they haven't spotted it, but it's reckless and it's dangerous. So, you know, no arguments there. I don't know whether it's brought on by something, but it's a bit naive from who I'd consider now a fairly experienced professional.
Yeah, definitely.
I think he's just one of these people that just plays the game. You know, he looks like he's on the edge of starting a fight, but he's just one of these guys that he's really competitive and he plays the game. He plays the whole I'm going to wind up the opposition. I'm going to do this, and he's a bully for defenders. And you can see that in the way he plays as well. The fact that when he sees an opportunity, when the ball is just about to get into the box, he gets there ahead of the defender, or at least tries to, every single time. Like there's no rest for the opposition defenders. And you know, all he wants to do is get that bloody ball in the back of the net, and he will by any means necessary, really. So, and I think that's probably why fans love him, and I think that's why a lot of opposition fans hate him as well.
Definitely, mate. Farrell, it's the same. I mean, he's one of them players that if he's in your side, you love him. If he's not in your side, you can't abide the man. How do you see Scott Parker lining up? Does Mitrovic start?
Yeah, I think we're obviously, it's a bit of a weird one and probably a bit difficult. I'll do my best, but I'll probably get 2 or 3 of them wrong, considering, because you know, no new players last Saturday. Most of the new signings started last night, plus a couple of others coming back from fitness. And so, what Scott Parker thinks is the best team on Saturday, because he wants to win every game. This isn't about sort of embedding new talent in and whatnot. This is about winning the football match. So, you know, I think the goalkeeper situation is a bit up in the air. It could be, if it was me, I'd probably start Rodak again. Right back, I'll go with Tete. Centre backs will probably be Hector and Ream again. Left back, Joe Bryan. In the centre of the park, again, if it was me, I'd go Anguissa and Reed playing as double pivot. Ahead of them, Tom Kearney. On the right, I'd probably go for Knockaert. And on the left, I'd go Cavallero. And then up top, the main boy, Mitrovic.
Mitrovic, yeah. With us, I think the interesting point I think it'll be is if Cooper's back fit. Obviously, we missed him on Saturday. Robin Koch as well. It'd be quite the baptism of fire, I think, up against someone like Mitrovic. He's already had it, you know, it's a different type of striker. You know, he's coming from Germany. You know, you've had Firmino, Mane and Salah, and now you're having to deal with a totally different animal in Mitrovic. So it'll be quite the baptism of fire for him, because I think it will be him that picks him up, because he's in that Ben White mould, and Ben White were the one that picked Mitrovic up in the games previously. So, you know, he'll need some coaching through that game, I fully expect, with Cooper alongside him. And I'm led to believe Cooper's going to be fit, which is a massive plus for Leeds United. From my own perspective, we have to win this game. I think, you know, we've had a lot of the Norwich tag labelled at us, you know, in the lead up to the Liverpool game. They're just another Norwich, which was quite frustrating from a Leeds United fan. You know yourself, Farrell. I hold Leeds up here. You know, we're up there in terms of we're the biggest club, one of the biggest clubs. You know what it's like. You know, it might not be the same for opposition fans, but for me, I have us up there. So when people are labelling us, and I suppose it is a bit disrespectful to Norwich, but I'm like, no, we're not a Norwich. But if the performance against Liverpool will count for nothing if we don't go and perform against you at home on Saturday. And we have to win the game for me, because if we don't, the label will come back out again. From my own standpoint, I think we'll win the game. I do. I think, again, similar sort of performance at Ellen Road last time out. And I think, you know, it could be about 2-0. What are your thoughts ahead of the game?
Difficult one. I totally understand your viewpoint. I think that, you know, if it was totally me and a team coming up from the Championship, and I've learned this the hard way, especially last time around, that it's so difficult coming up and into the Premier League and coming in afresh, like regardless of, you know, how well you do throughout the season, you're always sniffing at relegation. And you know, you've always got that at the back of your mind. Obviously, for Fulham last time round, it was relegation was straight from the off. So, you know, we just didn't pick up points early doors. And I think against teams who are in the similar sort of area, any points you can take off them is always a result. So I believe that Fulham can get a victory. I think they do need to perform slightly better than they did on Saturday. Like we didn't carve out any real opportunities, so at least to get some creativity, at least to get some shots on target, to at least to actually work the keeper and create some chances. I think that would be much better than it already was last Saturday. So I still think that Fulham, I think a fair result would probably be a draw. I think a draw would actually, I'd be fine with that. I'd be okay. Not particularly delighted, not particularly sad. But I do think there's enough quality in this team to really hurt Leeds, to be honest, especially with the returning Anguissa. I think you're going to be surprised how good he is.
Yeah, well, you've mentioned him a couple of times now, and I'm actually looking forward. It'll be one that I'll mention in my own pre-match tomorrow morning when I put that out. I'll pretend I knew who he was beforehand. But no, listen, you've shown already, Farrell, anyway, in that first game. I mean, Fulham dominated, man. Dominated in that first half, in the fixture at Ellen Road. We were lucky to get in, as we did at half time, but we just caught you on the counter, and I think we'll have a similar sort of game plan, and hopefully it comes to fruition, because, like you say, you need to get off to a good start, because after that we've got Sheffield United and Man City. The tough games keep coming, so we lose on Saturday, you'd then be like, oh God, where's the next points coming from? And it's not something we're used to over the last few seasons under Bielsa. So
I do think, though, to Leeds' benefit, though, that unless there's an absolute horror show of a start where you lose like the first 10, 15 games, I think Leeds are in the benefit because the manager is so popular and is so widely regarded that one thing that works for teams is that if they actually have a bit of stability. So one thing that, the thing that actually works in their favour is that they won't make a knee-jerk reaction and get rid of Bielsa and try and sort of play catch-up with it straight afterwards. So I think anything less than absolute, 0 points after 15 games, I think Leeds will end up being fine.
Good, man. That's lovely to hear, Farrell. I know that was hard for you to say, but it was lovely to hear. I'm
being honest. Just being honest.
No. But no, pleasure as always, Farrell. Thank you so much for coming on, mate. I normally say good luck, but I don't know. We really need to win this game. But listen, good luck, man. I hope you have a good season.
An enjoyable game, basically. That's all we want, really.
Yeah, that's all we want, mate. Exactly. But like you said, I don't want that pat on the back kind of, you just perform well, but unlucky, like we got a little bit after Liverpool. So we need to follow it up with a strong performance on Saturday, and hopefully we can do that. But thank you so much. Just before you go, Farrell, where can we find you?
So you can find us on Twitter at Fulhamish Pod. We're also on YouTube. Just search for us, Fulhamish. We're also on Instagram if you want to go there. But yeah, thankfully we've got a weird enough name that we have all the choices of all the handles, so you can easily find us anywhere.
Everywhere, just Fulhamish everywhere, wherever you look, even TikTok, Farrell doing like dabs and stuff.
Get someone else to do that. I'm not a bit too old for that.
Thanks again, Farrell. Cheers, bud.